Hello, welcome back to ChangeTheReel. Sorry for the long delay in between episodes. I was on holiday break. Also on holiday break, I did happen to see the new Star Wars movie, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I really enjoy the movies, and I really had high hopes when I go in to see this movie because it looked much better than Episode 7. So I was really hoping for a really good experience. So let me break it down. Let's see if it lived up to my hype. One of the first things that pops out that was a negative aspect of the movie was I found that a lot of the scenes in the movie were dark. They were shot dark and low lighting situations, which to me wasn't a problem. I had no problem seeing what was going on, but I had my father with me, and he had trouble actually making out what was going on during those scenes. But of course, we were watching it in 3D, and 3D has a tendency to make scenes darker than they should. So I suggest if you have a problem with watching low light, darker scenes in a movie, probably skip the 3D aspect and just go with the regular 2D. That being said, the 3D was fine. I enjoyed the 3D. I thought it looked good in 3D. I don't see a reason why you would absolutely need to go see the 3D version. But, you know, the 3D looked good. There was nothing blaringly, wrong with the 3D. It looked good. The next thing that troubled me was the 3D characters of Tarkin and Princess Leia. Spoilers. I will be giving spoilers for this film. For character 3D effects, it looked really good. But they still haven't quite mastered it yet. You can still tell that they're 3D. You can still tell that they look fake. Mostly, I think a lot of it comes down to the eyes. They haven't quite mastered the look of the eyes yet. The eyes still look fake. And, you know, when they're not moving, like Tarkin, he has a lot more lines than Princess Leia, but Tarkin, when he's not moving, he's not saying any lines, he looks perfectly fine. He looks really good. But as soon as he starts moving and talking, it kind of falls apart. Now, I've seen worse 3D effects, but it's still pretty noticeable. I just don't understand why they couldn't just get an actor to play the role. I know you wanted to make it look right up to Episode 4, but really, was there really no reason why you couldn't cast an actor that looks pretty similar to the original actors? I think it wouldn't have bothered me. I know a lot of people were impressed by those 3D effects, and I admit, those 3D effects do look pretty good. I still don't think that they're at the quality of, well, we can replace actors now with 3D characters. I don't think that they're at that level yet. One of the other major problems with the movie that I found was that I had a really tough time trying to connect with any of the characters. I really didn't care about any of the characters, really. There was only one character that I actually really liked, and that was the droid, K2SO. All the other characters I really couldn't care for. I mean, other than the standard Star Wars characters like Darth Vader. Of course, I like Darth Vader, but he's not in it long enough to really be counted as, a main cast. But all the other main cast and everything, I really didn't care for them. I didn't hate them. I didn't hate the characters. I just didn't care for them. And speaking of Darth Vader, there was one scene in the movie, because Darth Vader really only has 2 scenes in the movie, and in the first scene we see Darth Vader, he has a line. And I know a lot of people seem to like the line, but I personally hated the line. The line where he's choking the guy and he says something to the effect of, try not to choke on your own ambitions. Which, I'm sorry, I don't like that line made me cringe. Especially coming from Vader. Because that's not a line that Vader would say. I don't see Vader as being saying something that cheesy and corny. That's a line that I could see like a James Bond villain would say. It would fit perfectly well with a James Bond villain. And I'm not trying to criticize a James Bond villain. I like James Bond, and I like James Bond movies, and I like the villains in James Bond. But Darth Vader's not a James Bond villain. The cheesy line like that Vader shouldn't be saying those lines. And they could have come up with a more clever thing for Vader to say than that, because that was it was cheesy, and it made me cringe when I heard that. It was not a very good line. Now, like I said before, I am a huge Star Wars fan, so I have the right to nitpick. And the nitpick that I have to say is a thing that I think is a continuity error, and it deals with the main ending of the film. It contradicts Episode 4. And it contradicts Episode 4, A New Hope, because at the ending of this movie, at the ending of Rogue One, we see the plans get transmitted to a ship, and then they get physically handed over, transported to the blockade runner, which then blasts off from that ship off into hyperspace. Now, that aspect contradicts what happened in Episode 4, directly with the dialogue. This dialogue.
Where are those transmissions you intercepted? Several transmissions were beamed to the ship by rebel spies.
First off, he says transmissions with an S. That's plural. There was no transmissions, according to Rogue One. It is one transmission. One transmission from the planet to the ship. There was one transmission. So that's a contradiction to what was said by Vader in Episode 4. It's a plural. Multiple transmissions were made to the ship. Also, Blockade Runner didn't receive those transmissions. The other ship received those transmissions, and it was physically carried from one ship to the other ship. Vader even saw the plans being transferred from one ship physically to the other ship. So there is he's in error. Now, I know I could probably be considered to be nitpicking here, but it is a continuity error. He does say the wrong things. Was that ending sequence cool? Yes, it was cool, but it still created a problem when you look at Episode 4. It doesn't fit right. It doesn't mesh together, and yeah, that's my nerdy nitpick of the continuity of this movie. Now I come to the worst part about this movie, and my main problem with this movie is that for about the first half of the movie, I am bored. It starts off really slow. This wasn't the movie that I was expecting to see when I went into this thing. I was expecting to see a war movie. I was expecting to go in and we get a lot of spy espionage, behind enemy lines type of deal through majority of the movie. We didn't get that. We got a lot of character build up at the beginning of the movie, which, of course, spoiler, I already knew before going in there that the characters were all going to die anyway. And no one had to tell me that they were going to die, because I knew in the back of my head, these characters they're dead. And so they're trying to build all these character development when, in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't care, because these characters are all going to die. It's slow character development at the beginning, and then you get to the action at the end. The action at the end is great. It would have been a much better film if they shortened the beginning of it down and made them get into that last planet quicker. That way, and have more of a spy espionage. We're sneaking in there to get those plans and have more of a plan and more of a behind enemy lines plan, as opposed to what they did was they stuck it on the planet and then pretty much went in full bore, guns a-blazing. And like, that makes a good action sequence, but it didn't really make a good espionage let's steal the plans, which is what I was kind of looking for, and I kind of what I hoped, and that's not what I got. So yeah, the first half was actually quite boring. I was getting kind of bored. But before you say, "Oh, I'm negative all through this movie," the action sequences in this movie are top notch. The special effects in this movie is top notch. I might have been complaining about the 3D characters, but special effects are still one of the best special effects you're going to see in a movie. And the action is great. There's some really good action sequences in there. There's some really good visuals. There's some really good stuff. And of course, one of the best characters is the droid. I love the droid. K2SO, he was awesome. I like the droid. He was the best character. And speaking about that ending scene, the fight sequence that Darth Vader has at the end, that kicked butt. That was awesome. I would have probably been more upset with this movie, and I would have called the movie a piece of garbage if they had Darth Vader in the film and Darth Vader didn't kick at least some butt. And I got a scene of Darth Vader kicking butt, and sure, it wasn't long enough for my taste, but it was still awesome to see that. It was really good. For a Star Wars geek, I geeked out when I saw that. That was awesome. I also like the fact that during the last battle sequence, they actually implemented deleted scenes from the first Star Wars movie, Episode 4, some of the pilots making appearances in this movie. That was good. I liked it. That was a nice little Easter egg. That was cool. I liked the fact that they did that, even though it has its flaws. I enjoyed the movie. It has its flaws. It's not the best Star Wars movie, but it was still an enjoyable movie. I enjoyed my movie. I enjoyed it. I didn't walk out of the theater thinking I wasted my money watching the movie. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I had fun. On ranking it with all the other Star Wars movies, I would say it's better than The Force Awakens. Which, anybody who knows me knows that I don't like The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens, in my opinion, is the worst of the Star Wars movies. I could literally rant about that for hours, but I won't. That can be another video. But yeah, The Force Awakens to me is the worst of the Star Wars movies. I like this one better than The Force Awakens, but I'm going to have to watch it a couple more times to figure out exactly where I might place it on my rankings. But me just saying, oh, it's a bad Star Wars movie, or it's not the best Star Wars movie, even though I might say it's not very good, it's still a Star Wars movie. It's like me having a bunch of diamonds in my hand, and I'm like saying, well, this one diamond is just not as bright as all the other ones, but it might not be as bright as all the other ones, but it's still a diamond. It's the same thing here. It's like going, well, a bad Star Wars movie is still a Star Wars movie. So I still highly enjoy the movie. It's still, I don't regret seeing it. It was really good, and I really enjoyed it. So if you like this review, please press the like button. If you want to see more of my review videos, please press the subscribe button.